The U.S. Navy base in Norfolk buzzed with energy. Sailors lined the shore, officers double-checked drills, and reporters gathered in anticipation. President Donald Trump was scheduled to witness a rare Navy training exercise, one conducted only once a year. But this visit felt different. Trump arrived without the usual spectacle. No lengthy speeches, no dramatic entrance. Dressed in a Navy windbreaker, he greeted commanders with quiet respect and took his place on the observation deck. His eyes didn't linger on the ships. They studied the young sailors. Among them stood Cadet Arya Morgan, a 22-year-old from Montana, known for her unmatched focus and relentless discipline. Raised by a single mother and inspired by a grandfather who had served in Vietnam, Arya joined the Navy not for recognition, but to honor a family legacy built on quiet courage. As the exercise began, aircraft launched from carriers, ships formed tight formations, and divers executed precise underwater maneuvers. Arya led her team through a high-risk simulation. An explosion thundered across the water as part of the drill. Trump didn't flinch. His expression remained calm, thoughtful. Beside him stood Commander Ray Holloway, a 60-year-old veteran of 3 wars. "She's one of the best we've seen in years," Holloway said, nodding toward Arya. Trump didn't answer immediately. Then he asked quietly, "What's her story?" Holloway smiled slightly. "She's got grit, and she never asked for anything." Trump's gaze lingered on Arya. Her face was streaked with mud. Her hands trembled slightly from exhaustion, yet she steadied a fellow cadet beside her. In that moment, something about the young cadet caught his attention. This visit wasn't just about observing a drill. Something in Trump's demeanor suggested he had come not only as president, but as a man with something to prove, or perhaps something to give. After the exercise, Arya wiped sweat from her brow. The drill had been intense, but her team's coordination had been flawless. She had no idea the President of the United States had been watching her. The cadets gathered for a brief debriefing. Commander Holloway praised Arya's team for their precision and discipline, but Arya's thoughts drifted elsewhere. Her eyes kept returning to the American flag flying above the carrier deck. It reminded her of her grandfather, James Morgan, who had died during the Gulf War. His medal still hung in their old wooden home in Montana. He used to say, "Respect isn't given, it's earned in the silence of duty." As Arya cleaned her gear, a security officer approached. "The president wants to meet you," he said. Arya froze. "Me?" Moments later, she followed the officer across the deck, her heart pounding. President Trump stood near the railing, the ocean wind tugging gently at his hair. When she approached, he turned toward her. "You're Arya Morgan?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied, standing at attention. He studied her for a moment. "You did something remarkable out there." "Just doing my duty, sir." Trump nodded slowly. "That's what makes it remarkable." Then he asked quietly, "Was your grandfather James Morgan?" Arya's eyes widened. "Yes, sir." "How did you know?" Trump looked out at the water for a moment. "I met him once in '89. He saved a man I knew in Kuwait." He paused. "Your grandfather was a hero." Arya blinked, stunned. Trump looked back at her. "Today I saw that same fire in you." His words felt heavier than praise. They felt like the beginning of something larger, something neither of them fully understood yet. That evening, Arya returned to her barracks in a daze. Her teammates immediately surrounded her with questions. What did the president say? Did he give you a medal? Did he shake your hand? Arya smiled but said little. How could she explain that the president remembered her grandfather? How could she describe the strange feeling that his words had stirred inside her? Meanwhile, President Trump had other plans. Back in the officers' lounge, he requested a private lunch. No reporters, no cameras. Only a handful of Navy leaders sat around the table with Commander Holloway. As they ate simple sandwiches, Trump leaned forward. "Tell me the truth," he said. "What do these young men and women need most?" The room fell silent. Finally, Holloway spoke. "Sir, it's not equipment. We've got that." He paused. "It's recognition. Real recognition. Most of them come from families where nobody notices when they leave for service. They need to know their sacrifice matters." Trump nodded slowly. "I saw that in Arya's face today." He leaned back in his chair. thinking. What if we did something different, he said. Something that shows every cadet and every soldier that we see them. The table grew quiet. What do you have in mind? Holloway asked. Trump didn't answer. Instead, he looked out the window at the harbor, where the American flag moved gently in the wind. Later that evening, he called the Secretary of Defense. What he proposed wasn't standard protocol, but it would become one of the most heartfelt gestures any sitting president had ever made toward the Navy, and it would begin with Arya. That night, Arya couldn't sleep. The president's words echoed in her mind. She walked quietly to the far end of the pier. Moonlight shimmered across the dark water. She thought about her grandfather. What would he say if he could see her now? Footsteps approached behind her. Commander Holloway. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. She shook her head. I keep wondering why he singled me out. Holloway looked at her calmly. Because sometimes the world needs to be reminded that greatness still exists in silence and service. They stood quietly, watching the waves against the dock. After a moment, Holloway spoke again. You started something. Arya, I don't know what yet, but I can feel it. The next morning, word spread across the base. President Trump was staying another day. Instead of returning to Washington, he requested a tour of the barracks, the mess hall, and the training grounds. No press, no ceremony. Cadets were shocked to see the commander-in-chief standing the chow line, shaking hands and talking with them one-on-one. He visited engineering teams. He climbed into a flight simulator. He spent nearly 10 minutes watching a drone demonstration with the aviation cadets. But when he reached Arya's unit, he paused. This, he said to the officers beside him, is the future. That afternoon, Trump called Commander Holloway into a private meeting. I want to do something symbolic, Trump said, but powerful. Holloway raised an eyebrow. Like what? Trump leaned forward. I want to award one cadet, just one, with the first ever presidential salute of honor. It has to mean something, and it has to be a surprise. Holloway blinked. And you want that cadet to be Arya Morgan. Trump simply nodded. Preparations began quietly. A small platform was built beside the base flagpole. A formal gathering was announced for sunset. All cadets were ordered to appear in full dress uniform. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the entire base gathered in silence. President Trump stepped onto the platform with Commander Holloway beside him. He looked out across the rows of sailors. I came here to observe, he began, but I leave here changed. He spoke about unseen bravery, about the quiet honor of service, about integrity, the kind that asked for nothing in return. And then he paused, because what he was about to do next would change Arya Morgan's life forever. Then President Trump called Arya's name, Cadet Arya Morgan. A murmur moved through the crowd as Arya stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. Trump reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Cadet Arya Morgan, he said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent base. In honor of your unwavering courage, humility, and service, I present you with the first ever presidential salute of honor. He opened the box. Inside rested a custom medal shaped like a flame and a shield. Along its edge were engraved the words, earned in silence. Then something happened that stunned everyone present. President Trump straightened his posture, brought his hand to his brow, and saluted her. The entire base fell silent. Cadets stared in disbelief. Officers blinked. Cameras froze in mid-recording. Never in modern history had a sitting president saluted a cadet during a public ceremony. Arya stood motionless for a moment. Then she returned the salute, tears gathering in her eyes. Trump leaned closer and whispered quietly, Your grandfather will be proud. Within hours, the moment spread across the country. Clips of the salute appeared on every major news outlet. Social media erupted with hashtags like hashtag salute to Arya and hashtag earned in silence. While the nation watched in awe, Arya sat quietly in her barracks, the medal resting in her hands. She felt overwhelmed. A knock sounded on the door. Commander Holloway stepped inside. You all right? He asked gently. Arya looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Holloway knelt beside her. Because sometimes, he said softly, the right person reminds the rest of us who we should be. The next morning, Arya's inbox was overflowing. Messages poured in from across the country. Veterans thanking her for reminding people what quiet service looked like. Children saying they wanted to join the Navy someday. One message came from a 70-year-old woman. "You reminded me of my husband who served in Vietnam," she wrote. "Thank you." Another letter arrived from a 10-year-old girl in rural Iowa. "Dear Arya, I saw you on TV. I want to be brave like you. My dad is in the Navy too. He doesn't get medals, but he's my hero. You are too." Arya wiped away tears as she finished reading. The medal had become something larger than a symbol. It had become a ripple touching thousands of lives. Seeing the impact, President Trump proposed a new recognition program called the Arya Initiative, designed to honor unsung military heroes each year. When Trump offered to fly Arya to Washington for interviews and media appearances, she politely declined. "I didn't do this for fame, sir," she said respectfully. "If we start spotlighting service, we should spotlight everyone." Trump paused for a moment, then smiled. "You just reminded me why people like you are exactly what this country needs." He honored her request. No press tour. Instead, Trump arranged a private video call with Arya and her mother to personally thank their family for generations of service. The call was never leaked. There were no headlines, just a quiet moment between a president and a family who believed in duty. 1 week later, Arya received an unexpected invitation. The Naval Academy offered her a position as a junior leadership instructor. It was almost unheard of for someone still in training. "You have become a symbol of leadership," the message read. "Future leaders should learn from the real ones." Arya struggled with the decision. She loved active training, but her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. "When you're given a chance to shape others, you take it." She accepted, and just like that, Arya Morgan became the youngest instructor in Naval Academy history. Months passed. One morning, while teaching a class about the chain of command, a package arrived from the White House. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Arya, I watched your story touch the nation, but what impressed me most was your refusal to stand in the spotlight alone. That takes something rare. You didn't just serve. You reminded people what service looks like. Keep leading. The next generation is watching." Donald J. Trump. Arya framed the letter but kept it tucked inside her drawer, close to her heart, next to her grandfather's medal. One afternoon, she was called to the academy gates. An older woman waited there. "Are you Arya Morgan?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sarah Holloway, Ray's wife." Commander Holloway had recently retired. "He talks about you often," she said with a warm smile. "He asked me to give you this." She handed Arya a worn leather journal. Inside were Holloway's reflections on leadership, notes written over decades in the Navy. The final entry read, "To Arya, you are the future. Never doubt your place." Arya held the journal tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Later that year, Arya was invited to speak at a Navy graduation ceremony. She had prepared a long speech, but when she stepped the podium, she set the script aside. "I was given a medal," she began, "but I didn't earn it alone." She spoke about teamwork, humility, and silent courage. Then she said something that echoed across the hall. "If you ever wonder whether your service matters, remember this: somewhere in the world, someone is safer because you chose to serve." The room erupted in applause. Soon afterward, Arya returned home to Montana to visit her mother. They sat together on the porch watching the sunset. Her grandfather's old flag fluttered softly on the lawn. "Do you think Grandpa will be proud?" Arya asked quietly. Her mother smiled. "He'd probably tell you to stop asking and just keep doing what's right." Arya laughed. Inside the house, she opened her grandfather's old wooden chest. Photos, dog tags, old service patches, and a small note. "True strength is quiet." Arya closed the chest and whispered, "I understand now." Before leaving office, President Trump signed one final order. He created National Day of Silent Service, honoring the countless military members who served without recognition. The date chosen was the day he first met Arya. She attended the ceremony virtually, standing beside her students at the academy, showing them that humility should always stand beside honor. One day, a young cadet named Lily Tran approached her nervously after class. "Ma'am, you're the one with the medal, right?" Arya smiled gently. Yes, but that doesn't make me different. Lily hesitated. I want to be like you. Arya looked her in the eyes. Then don't be me, she said. Be better. In that moment, Arya understood something important. Her legacy wasn't the medal. It wasn't the salute. It wasn't the speech. It was a seed she planted in others. Years later, President Trump called her one evening. Arya, he said warmly, I wanted to tell you something. He explained that a mother had written to him. Her daughter had joined the Navy because of Arya's story. She said her daughter didn't want fame. Trump told her. She just wanted to matter quietly. Arya felt tears gather. Thank you, Trump said, for what you did and what you keep doing. One day, Arya noticed a struggling cadet standing alone after training. She walked over. Do you know why silence matters? She asked. The cadet shook his head. Because, she said gently, silence makes your actions louder. The words became her teaching motto. She never imagined that one day those words would be carved in stone. 5 years later, a monument was unveiled at the Naval Academy. A bronze statue of a cadet saluting stood proudly in the courtyard. Beneath it were engraved the words, earned in silence, inspired by Cadet Arya Morgan. President Trump attended the unveiling quietly. No cameras, just applause. Standing beside Arya, he leaned close and whispered, This is your salute to the future. Years later, Arya stood again at the edge of a pier, watching the water just as she had long ago. She was older now, stronger. A young cadet walked past and saluted her. Arya returned the salute, just as she once had to the president. In that moment, she understood something clearly. It had never been about the medal, not the speeches, not the headlines. It had always been about legacy, and hers had only just begun.